Are we going to keep talking about this on the show, or are you still fishing right now?
For a cold open, I've been fishing for 5 years for a cold open.
You know...
You still haven't found cold open gold yet?
What's the deal?
It's amazing to me that the Carolina Hurricanes are being called out for being unprofessional by a guy who literally uses material for Chesterfields to make his suits, and another guy who refuses to do up his tie when he's on national television.
How many Stanley Cups do those guys have? 1.
Was that it?
Yeah, I think just 1. So, yeah.
So do the Carolina Hurricanes.
Ah, shit.
It's a tie game.
We get a lot of shots. Everybody come to the net. We just have to get more and more pucks to the net.
Pucks on net.
Go pucks on net.
Pucks on net.
We used to talk about in Vancouver getting pucks on net.
What were you saying about putting pucks on net?
Continue to put pucks on net.
Pucks on net.
Put pucks on net and get lucky sometime.
Pucks on net and driving and making it a hard night on
it. Live on tape from Geeta's apartment, her palatial estate on the 23rd floor. This is Pucks on Net, a Vancouver hockey podcast that doesn't talk about fantasy or fancy stats. What are we going to talk about this week tonight, folks?
Hockey.
Hockey. Luke Shin, Mikey DiPietro, the St. Louis Blues, the Arizona Coyotes, the New York Islanders, and the Carolina Hurricanes. All the most boring teams in the league. We got them right here on Pucks on Net.
You gave all our secrets away.
Yeah. That's all the hype. That's how you bring them in. You reel them in with these shiny bait
baubles
of things. Oh, the St. Louis Blues. We got to listen about the St. Louis. Like, they're coming in with the droves now because when
just cast those pearls, Ryan.
Jimmy Bennington or whatever his name is, John. What's his?
Jimmy Bennington. Is the Canucks general manager moonlighting as the goaltender for the St. Louis Blues?
Yes, he puts on.
Oh, is that their couple name?
Yeah.
I'd like to try out for the team. My name, Jim E. Bennington.
Well, shit. Come on in. We got room for you.
Open tryouts in Missouri.
My name is.
Things are going really well there.
They are. What's the score right now? It is, for those listening, to date this show, it's Sunday at about 2:00. And I'm just curious.
Trying to keep tabs on that win streak.
Which win streak?
St. Louis Blues.
It's a hell of a win streak. They're at 9 right now. And when I was watching...
Until the trade deadline comes along and they trade everybody away. They're like, we're not going for it this year.
just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah,
I had to move some bodies.
There's something in the air that doesn't really percolate with what I think we want to do here. Well, we've won 15 in a row, and this Jordan Jimmy Bennington fella is really doing it.
I think Brian Burke was talking about that the other day. What are all these teams going to be buyers at the deadline when they're going to get smoked by those big 3 or 4 in the West?
Oh, I thought he was referring specifically to Vancouver, but I'm glad that he was referring to like everybody in the West.
I think he meant that pool of 6 or 7 teams that probably won't make it past the first round.
You need those teams too, though.
That's Ryan's going to go to the out-of-town scoreboard here. Puck's on the out-of-town scoreboard. St. Louis 4, Minnesota nothing.
Oh, golly.
Late in the second, Vladimir Tarasenko, he's got 3 points on the game.
Thank goodness. I need a miracle in the pool this week.
Well, we're not going to... I figured...
No fantasy or fancy stats.
5 minutes. Sorry. 5 minutes for paying.
That's literally what dominated.
5 minutes for paying is going to be all about the week that was in the Pucks on It Fantasy League.
Okay, I agree. There was a lot of drama.
The press... They didn't even care what the rest of the league was up to.
No.
They just cared about one hot topic.
If you thought there was Carolina drama, just wait till you get to 5 minutes for paying in the Pucks on Net Fantasy League.
Everybody at home, that's a little Jack White reference there. A little rack on too.
I'm like, people were doing blog posts about it.
Yeah, people coming out of the woodwork. That being said, thanks for joining us wherever you guys from. I haven't actually, we're way ahead. My name is Ryan Chapp. I will be your host for the evening, and I'll be providing traffic on the ones. To my immediate left is Geeta. She owns this joint.
Hi.
Yeah. She's letting Paul.
Thanks for making yourself at home.
I initially made myself at home here in the palatial estate, and then I realized I was not given that opportunity, and I promptly cleaned up my mess. Meanwhile, Paul was given that option.
He's taking his pants off.
Okay, I'll go with that. Never say no in improv.
It's a very nice skirt.
It's a kilt.
Sorry, yes. Looks like he's wearing a blanket.
Hi, lad.
And that being said, thank you for joining us wherever you guys are. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at pucksonnetca or pucksnetca. And if you want to support the show monetarily, you can head on over to patreon.com/pucksonnet, where you can pledge a couple of bucks. And we have a new Patreon backer that came on board on Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember, but I don't think this is a real name.
Okay.
I think it is or shortened versions of just ARP Par has pledged $5 a month, and they tweeted that I believe their profile picture on Twitter is of TJ Detweiler. So it appeals to me.
Yeah.
But they pledged $5 so they could hear me and PMAC just do the Shirellisode ranking Pete.
Yep.
Boy, is that relevant.
Yeah. He doesn't have a job anymore. And the Oilers, they made a trade.
Made a couple of trades.
That one was pretty spicy, although it's kind of funny. So Edmonton traded Cam Talbot.
Right.
The sexy of the Corey Schneider-like backups of yesteryear to
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia to mentor the young impressionable Carter Hart. And in return, they got a goalie back.
Hooray!
They had to move Cam Talbot because of cap reasons and Sekera coming back from
the emphasis being on the 1-for-1.
Yeah, they love 1-for-1. That's the tradition in Edmonton. It's a 1-for-1.
It'll be interesting, though. Philadelphia now has Brian Elliott on a conditioning stint. So all of a sudden, they have a glut. And Mike McKenna still hasn't been waived. Mm-hmm. They've had Mike McKenna with the Flyers as a third goalie sitting upstairs since they picked him up from the Canucks. Or I guess since Stolarz came back from injury. But they're afraid to lose him on waivers. And I'm alluding to something else we'll talk about.
Ooh.
It feels like a lifetime ago, but the whole goaltending situation where the Canucks were down to one healthy goalie in their entire system.
They're down to zero now.
19-year-old OHL goalie. The Canucks were waiting on Mike McKenna to go back on waivers because Philadelphia had two healthy goalies and Brian Elliott on the verge of coming back. But they wouldn't do it.
They're doing some amazing cap and CBA hustling in Philly right now.
Cap and trade.
Yeah. They are doing a lot of long-term injured reserve conditioning stint, extended conditioning stint. Mm-hmm. And that does seem like a lifetime ago. We recorded the podcast on Sunday, literally right before the snow came and destroyed us. Like when we were, if you listened last week, there was a really good cocaine joke I made that it's not snowing. A drug lord on a higher floor.
I don't think it was a good joke.
This is true. We were in the midst of our blizzard. Today, it's amazingly beautiful blue skies.
And snow starts up again Tuesday, apparently.
But when I left the podcast, I was like, it's snowing. I doubt it's sticking downstairs. And I had my mother's car to return with very worn tires on it. And I got outside and it was sticking. And I just thought, I need to return this right now. Mm-hmm. So we have had, and then on Monday, Mikey DiPietro got hung out to dry.
That feels like a lifetime ago.
And then there was the Snowmageddon and chaos erupting and cars being on fire and buses sliding down Oak Street 5 at a time.
I would like to point out that some of the videos being shared on social media of the bad weather in Vancouver were just old videos from various places around North America being relabeled as videos from Vancouver and the surrounding area.
This is true. When you see the Statue of Liberty...
it wasn't that
not Vancouver.
It was Chilliwack. And
there was one making the rounds, especially that was chill. And it was an awful crash, but it was at least a year old. I found versions of it have been reposted.
It was 4 years old from Michigan. And Nick Lidstrom was in it wearing a Captain C sweater. And we're like, clearly this is old. Come on.
Unless he's
in the wrong city.
He's on his way to BC Esquimalt's CBC event.
Okay. So how many moves before this Anthony Stolarz turns into Grant Fuhr?
Like a Grant Fuhr comeback?
No, isn't that what Edmonton does?
What did they do with Grant Fleer?
It's a joke. Clearly, you guys aren't getting them. Just like the Eberle turned into Sam Guy. Thank you.
Well, because right below this, that's funny. Let's take a second and appreciate that is funny. All right. Now, that being said, his name is listed on this rundown, which I think is the first time. I'm thinking of Tom Barrasso. That doesn't apply. He's not on this rundown.
Tom Barrasso was part of the St. Louis Blues 7 goalies that is about to be broken in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I thought the tie-in was. They love a blast from the past. They're a real throwback Thursday kind of team.
Yeah.
They also embrace way back Wednesday and flashback Friday. They love going back.
Right, because I guess I jumped ahead to their other trade.
Yes.
But let's deal with this one.
Well, I don't know what they're expecting out of him, and I don't know what they're expecting out of. Well, crap, I've already forgotten his name.
They're all
Koskinen?
Mika Koskinen.
Oh,
They
okay.
signed Koskinen into the big money deal.
Yeah.
So they see him as at least the next few years potential big starter. He's way older than I thought he was. Like, I knew he had played in the NHL a few years back. He's 30. Like, he's not some young up-and-coming goalie.
30 is a good age.
30's prime.
Average age in the NHL right now is 27. So
Yeah, but I mean,
it's not like, they're signing up-and-coming. I don't know. You never know with goalies, though. He could be a Tim Thomas.
yeah, but he's somebody
That's
that
what they're hoping.
at 30, he's in his prime because he had one winning season in the KHL. So you sign him at 30, and by 33, he'll have at least one more winning season in the KHL because he probably won't last in Edmonton, right? Am I right there?
So Stolarz is just they just needed to move Cam Talbot. They were going to lose him in the summer
Okay.
And they
anyways, a UFA, but they literally could not bring Sekera back off the IR without moving that.
They cleared something like $3.5 million in cap space from those moves.
Okay.
So it all kind of adds up. Another thing that happened that we forgot to talk about was it came out last week over the previous weekend that Hitchcock was ready to walk away from the team, and now he's backpedaling his comments about what he said about the Oilers and how the coaches can't have to shouldn't be wanting it more than the players. It's just
Why? Because he thinks these moves look promising?
No, because he needs that new pool at the place in Kamloops. You can't just walk away from that money.
Isn't it funny that the exact same thing that happened with Pat Quinn 10 years ago when Sam Gagner was the upstart is happening to another old-fashioned, old-timey coach where he's like, Jesus Christ, I can't handle this. Like, God, you're ruining my legacy here. I got to get the hell out of here.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see who they hire in the summer. Some people have thought Glenn Gulletson might get the shot, which would be
What
interesting.
if nobody just wants that job? Like, no.
I was thinking maybe they go to Don Cherry because they've done Pat Quinn and they've done Ken Hitchcock.
It's literally going to be someone who's desperate for a job and to get into
Mike
the league.
Keenan.
That would be hilarious.
That'll whip Connor McDavid into shape.
How was his relationship with Wayne Gretzky? Because we know Wayne and Keith are going to be calling the shots for who comes in next.
Wayne can coach.
Oh.
He's got coaching experience.
And didn't Keenan coach Gretzky?
I think 1 year and
Yeah.
the one
In St. Louis? No.
St. Louis,
that's
yeah.
the one I'm
Was that
thinking
the
of.
overlap? Yeah, because he went to St. Louis right after the New
Yeah.
York. Yep.
I'm gonna bring Dave in because I wanted to bring in. We need to touch on a team that we never touch on, so I'm gonna dial up.
Let
Dave
me guess which team. Is it?
Well, hang on. You hang on now. Well, we can keep talking.
Is
You
it
told
Minnesota?
us-
Yeah, you told us to hang on, and I wanted to guess which team we don't ever talk about.
That's Dave. I believe he's chimed in from our nation's capital. Dave, is that you?
Yes, it is. It is me.
Dave, we're gonna talk about an exciting team. Who's the most exciting team in the NHL right now?
I would have to say that is the New York Islanders.
Ding, 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 and that's the segue. And he didn't even get the rundown this week. The Islanders, well, one thing, they're very interested in PMAC and Matt Duchene, whose future is going to be is going to be figured out this week. So a perfect time to date the podcast because when you listen to this on Thursday, he'll be traded to the Islanders, the Predators, or maybe the Jets, I think.
I thought the Jets were hard on Mark Stone.
They're hard for the fans are hard for Stone. They were chanting "We want Stone," or to some.
Oh, he's a Winnipeg boy.
Oh, they got to get him.
No, I think the problem is the Sens are hard on Matt or Stone. So
hard for Stone.
Is it
Whatever.
Matt Stone or Mark Stone?
It's
Mark Stone.
It's Mark Duchesne and Matt Stone.
Oh, Matt's.
no.
Oh my gosh.
Now you're
I
tripping
haven't
up Paul.
had enough coffee yet today.
So this is something really interesting that came out, and it was flying under the radar most of yesterday, and the Score published it today. But basically, it was the NHL and NBC Twitter account posted a stat, which is pretty intriguing. That last year with Barzal or with John Tavares, February 15th of last year, they were 28, 25, and 6. And on the 15th of 2019, they're 34, 17, and 6. And to which dangling junior hockey darling, Rob Schremp. Do we all remember Rob Schremp? Dave, can you give me a brief little a rundown of what Rob Schremp was made famous for?
$1 million handles and about a 5-cent head.
Fair enough.
Is my scouting report on one Robbie Schremp. He was a London Knight superstar, a second-round pick of the Oilers, so another failed high-end Oilers.
Actually, I think he was a late. I looked it up. He was a late first, like 25th overall, back when the Oilers were picking late. But he replied on Twitter unprovoked, and he's not really. All he says is he's the ultimate "I did my job" kind of superstar.
In reference to Tavares, because this read weird.
Okay, sorry, yeah. In reference to Tavares, the ultimate "I did my job" kind of superstar. He wins when he goes to play for his country, as they are loaded with players mostly equal or better. Other than that, he just collects his points and his awards.
Yeah. Rob Schremp, though, isn't like the best guy.
Well,
he's got a pretty garbage reputation himself. He's not a player of high standing, but the timing of this is convenient, is it not? That the Islanders are just as good, if not better, than the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, I will say that another interesting quote that everybody decided to pick apart was Matt Barzal when he was asking what's the difference between this year and last year. Was like, with Barry Trotz in here, everybody's treated the same, and everyone's like, well, what does that mean? And what does that mean?
Right.
And you just kind of get this thought that maybe John Tavares did his own thing and scored his own points, and then the other team did the rest of the work. Or,
well, also you got to remember though that Barzal's only been in the league for a year and a half now, and his first year in the league. Tavares is an unsigned, unrestricted free agent going into the summer. Yeah, he'd be treated differently by the organization because they're trying to sign him. So I don't think that's fair either. I think the main difference really between this year's team and last year's team is twofold. It's Barry Trotz over whoever the hell they had in there last year. And
Jack Capuano,
former Canuck.
Yeah, former Vancouver Canuck, Jack Capuano. And goaltending. Robin Leonard gets out of a terrible situation in Buffalo, and he's a good goalie. And Thomas Greiss doesn't have to carry the 60-game workload, and he goes back to his usual 40-game workload, and he's Thomas Greiss again. So goaltending and coaching.
Depth too. That is a lineup. Andrew Ladd's just about to come back. He'll probably fit in on the fourth or third line. And I know he's not Andrew Ladd of the past, but they're just a good. There's no Barzal's probably the one big star, and then you got guys like Josh Bailey that people are like, oh yeah, he played in that one All-Star game, but he is a pretty reliable 50 to 60 point guy, and they've got several of those. Anders Lee is a very talented guy, not a superstar.
Yeah.
Depth goes a long way in the NHL right now.
Nobody's really Barzal's leading the team with 50 points. Bailey's got 44, and Anders Lee has 39. But it's definitely they're winning by committee. And then you brought up Robin Leonard, which is probably the biggest. He's having one hell of a resurgence, and basically he became sober in the off season before this season. He was diagnosed with bipolar and ADHD and PTSD. So this is a guy that's overcoming just about everything.
Yeah.
And he's channeled into a positive season, and it's amazing to see. And you'd almost think that the team is kind of wanting to play extra hard and support him as much as possible.
Well, he's the whole package too. Like once you get by the mental health issues and you look at just the physical tools, the size, the reaction time, the speed, and how highly touted he was before getting into the NHL. It's Markstrom's a much more solid individual in terms of like his background, but it's kind of the same story where, big Swedish goaltender, raw talent, probably rushed into the league ahead of the time where he would have been considered ready.
Yeah.
And now at 28, 29 years old, kind of, a late bloomer, if you will. Leonard's had to overcome a lot more, but, looking at the package of size and talent, I'm not that surprised he's playing well, especially with a leader like Trotz. And like what Paul was saying is they're right. Like look at their third and fourth lines. Those are all guys that can play. You've got Leo Komarov on that team, Casey Cizikas. It's not that surprising that they're decent. It is surprising that they're 37-15 though. That's pretty shocking.
Well, they're leading the Metro. They're up a few points on the Capitals, who are just slumping, so it makes sense, but nobody suspected this at all.
No, because we're just so used to the Islanders being so bad.
Yeah, and
they're literally a write-off team.
They're the Mets.
They're homeless.
This is a really interesting. You can look at some, I know not entirely, but some parallels with the Edmonton Oilers, where you look in the past. Where were the Islanders for the beginning of the Tavares years? Ownership probably a little too involved. Rumors of odd decisions being made. And when you look at, the Gar Snow hiring at general manager, when you look at the top down within the organizational side, front office stuff was a bit of a mess for a long time with the Islanders going way back. Mike Milbury's days were just chaos. This is an organization with a lot of clutter. I'm not talking about their fourth line clutter up there. And it took some drastic changes when it comes to ownership and management and now coaching as well. We're seeing with Trotz coming in where a little bit of security, stability, wisdom, structure there goes a long way. And then the team they've got right now is basically built to be a good team around a megastar like a Tavares, but they couldn't convince him that these guys were ready for that, and he wanted to go back to Toronto. I think that's part of it. I don't blame Tavares for this. He sat through a lot of garbage in New York. And probably checked out a few years ago, and it's hard to blame him for that. You can say hockey players should never give up on their teams like that, but that's sort of what I'm seeing here. And then if they can turn around now and pick up a Matt Duchene, getting screenshots.
Sorry, Dave.
If you can pick up a Matt Duchene.
Dave was filming his cat, and I'm like, I got to get a screenshot.
But if they can pick up a Duchene, or even better, maybe a Stone, I still think, as much as you guys might be shocked to hear, I like Stone better than Duchene. Whoa! But if you can go out right now and pick up one or two of those type of guys and add it to that roster, all of a sudden they're a threat. If they go in without that type of stuff, just Barzal in the playoffs, I don't know if I see them making a lot of noise because you need a game breaker or two come playoff time, and I think that's what they're missing. That's the only thing they're really missing right now.
Yeah, they're a lunch bucket. We all got to give 100% to win a game.
And you add a star or two to that, that's a recipe for success.
It could be a recipe for success, but also if a team like that is performing that well, my cat's trying to make out with my phone, which is kind of funny. But the team's performing that well and they're kind of rallying around, certain guys in the room, like Ryan was saying, maybe adding a guy like Matt Duchene or a Stone isn't good for the room. It's not good for chemistry. Maybe you don't tinker too much and you just kind of leave it, where it is.
Well, that's my major OCD concern is that the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to shoot themselves in the foot with a Michael Ferland trade. So, that's your concern with every single team come playoff time. But to what we said earlier, based on the people that are running the show there in Trotz and in Grandpa Lou Lamoriello, if there's a front office staff that can bring the right guy in and make things work,
they should be able to read that situation. So maybe they know maybe it is bad to bring someone in. Those two guys I would trust to be able to read that at least as well as anyone can. It's always a risk one way or the other. But that's another reason why if you can get a Stone's more of a head down, kills penalties. Matt Duchene's got more offensive ability, but Matt Stone just across the board is more of like he's the type of guy you want wearing the C. Ottawa wants to put the C on him. The only problem is they need to lock him down long term before they can do that.
The scuttlebutt right now is that, where do we have it here? This is Darren Drager. Unless there's a last-minute change, the Senators plan on trading Duchesne, and Mark Stone's future in Ottawa should be determined earlier this week, well in advance of the trade deadline. So,
also, Ryan Zingle, is in that group as well. So all three of their top three scorers could be off the team by by February 25th.
Jeez.
And you'd hope they get a huge haul from trading those guys.
Yeah.
Like a boatload of scratch tickets.
There's a lot of nervous people in this city right now, and I don't mean because the temperature rose today where everybody was skating on the canal. Everybody, all these Senators fans that I'm around every day, everybody's pretty on board with them moving all three, but there is a lot of anxiety about the return.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Islanders end up making a trade, I'm sure that, they're probably not going to end up giving up as much as people would think. Lou Lamoriello is like the love it or list it general manager of the NHL these days. He just goes from franchise to franchise and turns them around. So, I don't know where Lou's going next, but maybe he's the answer in Edmonton.
Mm-mm.
Get them to shave off all those beards and get winning hockey games. He's like a property brother. He just goes around fixing up old shanties and turning them into livable houses.
Connor is looking pretty rough these days. He may benefit from a shave.
Connor's lived 1,000 lives this year.
You gotta get those money beats, looking nice and shiny. Connor, we're gonna get you a nice shave and a haircut, 2 bits, 2 points.
Let's talk about. I'll keep you on here for this too, because this is really funny.
Yeah.
And then the Canucks finally traded Sam Gagner back to Edmonton, who they were like, we don't need Sam Gagner anymore. We've got all the money beats in the world. We got this. And basically it's now Jordan Emberley was traded to bring back Sam Gagner, who they let walk for free.
But old Sam Gagner, who has trouble making NHL rosters.
Did somebody say 8-point game?
He's the latest relic, old Oilers relic, living in the past. Yeah, I remember this. I remember this barn. Well, we don't play here anymore. We used to play there. Scored 8 points there one night. What's that? Healthy scratch? Oh, whoopsie.
He was so excited. Moments after that, he changed his Twitter photo to 2008 Oilers jersey. Sam Gagner I'm happy for him.
I'm happy for him too.
Last hurrah.
I'm really. Yeah, he's had a rough year.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the Marlies and all that. But the guy they got back for him, Ryan Spooner, it's a curious case, this Ryan Spooner. I went to Hockey TV and looked at his statistics.
Mm-hmm.
How did he ever get that much money? He's never done anything.
Prior to this year, he was averaging, I did the numbers, 43 points.
That's not $4 million.
No.
$4 million?
He's never scored 20 goals.
The Canucks have
nothing.
The Oilers are paying just short of $1 million of that right now. So that's where that money
Oh my
out.
God.
Yeah.
So he's so useless that another NHL team is paying him $2.5 million not to play for them.
Mm-hmm.
So he is a guy making too much money. Somebody saw him.
It's not one team. It's actually two teams that are paying his salary.
He's a guy who when was that contract signed? He was probably 24.
Yeah,
and he had just come off or was around where he got his 50-point season or whatever. They saw him as this youngster who was going to be a top line guy playing with Bergeron and Marchand in Boston. That's what happened. It's not unlike Eric Goodbranson type of situation where this guy's been okay in these other roles. We're just going to assume he's going to get a lot better, and he's the right age to maybe get a lot better, and he didn't get a lot better.
No, he didn't, and now he's the credit union hockey player. Everybody's got a share. Everybody's an owner.
He's an interesting guy though, because really, other than this year, he hasn't been a bad player. Yeah. Overpaid maybe,
right?
But he's been a consistent, he's ideally probably a third line guy that support staff, gives you some offense off that third line. I heard some rumors that they didn't like his defensive play some of the time in Boston. That was part of the reason why they were willing to ship him out to New York at the deadline last year. He actually came in, was almost a point-a-game guy for the last part of the season in New York, and then came into this year and just was not finding a place in that lineup. Couldn't find a place in Edmonton, and that's where he found himself.
He's had a good couple months in parts of seasons here and there. I was looking at how his stats trend, and it's he can stay consistent and hot for about 2 months, and then he dries up. He's,
May and June.
Yeah, exactly, Geeta. And he gets, but yeah, apparently
he's only played in the playoffs once.
He doesn't like the corners. He doesn't like the nitty gritty of the game. He's soft, apparently. And I looked at his Instagram, and it backs it up. He seems very soft.
It's a lot of
blessed concert pics, and just like a lot of like surfing with his buds.
He needs to have Instagram posts of him pushing a tractor tire down a street in Montreal like Mike Camilleri.
That's right. Or him like at a boxing gym with a bunch of street youth that he's mentoring. That's what we want to see.
He's listed. He's listed at 5'11", so he's not a big guy. He's the type of guy who's going to have to contribute offensively. Mm-hmm. I go back, you know what? If you're a secondary scoring guy and you can put up 40 points in a season and you're not being a liability defensively, I would venture to say that's okay, even if there are some dry spells in the offense there.
In the list of depth no-name Canucks, where does he rank in Spooner, Mott, and Schaller?
I would almost compare him prior to this season. He's like a Mason Raymond type of guy.
Really?
No.
He's like a third. Ideally,
you
want him. He's an undersized guy. He's not going to bring that bang and crash and corners play. But ideally, you're not going to overpay him. You put him on your third line, and he's maybe offensive. But at the same time, I didn't think Mason Raymond had too much success beyond those couple of years where he was putting up decent numbers. That's where I sort of see Spooner could be the same guy. He could be out of the year in a league or two, or in a year or two.
He easily could be. For me, he's got HC Davos written all over him. This guy is a future Swiss League scoring champion. At least Mason Raymond hit 20 goals a couple times and over 50 points. Ryan Spooner never did that. And Mason Raymond played pretty well in the playoffs until he got his back broken. He's Spooner's just like, he's another Instagram boring ass average hockey player, but he makes so much goddamn money. It's crazy how much he's getting paid.
He's almost
got whoever his agent is, that's the real MVP. That guy's the best agent in the NHL.
It's probably Louis. Him and Louis Eriksson probably have the same agent.
Oh, definitely. And Sutter, whoever's representing Okay, here's the one I wanted to talk to you guys about. Is Brandon Sutter done after this season in the NHL, or he's got one more shot, right?
I think he's got
one more shot, but only in Vancouver.
I don't know when his contract is up. Is it up at the end of next year? I think it was a 5-year deal.
Has it really been 5 years? Have we had a whole Olympic cycle? Was Obama president when he showed up?
The entire lifetime of the podcast, Brandon Sutter's been a Canuck.
No, we had Nick Bonino for a bit.
Sutter was acquired in the summer of 2015.
Oh, jeez.
I was on vacation. I remember I got the news.
Let me just scroll down to injured reserve on the Canucks cap friendly, because that's where he usually is.
Do we feel more comfortable while he's injured, though?
Yes, it's weird when he shows up.
He's got 2 more years after this, but he's inconsistent in play and very consistently hurt, which is not a trend you want for hockey players.
No.
Spooner's the type of guy who could step in here. They're bringing him in because Jake Virtanen's on the IR. He's played center in the past. If he cannot be a screw-up on the defensive side of things, he could steal Brandon Sutter's job, provided he takes a pay cut.
Just be better than Goldobin, and you'll stay in the line.
A lot of people have compared him to a Goldobin type of guy, too, where he's like, sometimes Spooner's numbers have looked pretty good in the past, but there's other parts of the game where you go, is it okay? Dave's going to hate me for this. I did look up Spooner's Corsi, and there were a few years there where his Corsi numbers, the few good years he played, were amazing. Like, in the limited minutes he played, he was putting up fantastic numbers and pushing the play in the right direction. So he's a guy I'm curious to see. I'm not expecting anything from him, but I think if you're trading Sam Gagner for him, sure, why not? That sounds fine.
Like they need a roster, a warm body spot for Sven Berchi, whose season's more than likely done.
Oh, he's done for the season. Yeah.
So
it's a better warm body pickup than other pickups in past. Like, I'm more excited to see what Spooner could bring than Nick Dowd.
Hey, Nick Dowd's
Is that an option again?
They're loving Nick Dowd in Washington right now. They're saying he's the new Jay Beagle. Yeah, at a fraction of the price.
We got the old Jay Beagle.
The original Jay Beagle.
and we paid a lot for him.
Slapped an A on him too this week.
Billions and billions and billions. He's getting that Spooner money.
What was
Anybody else upset about the Carolina Hurricanes? Anybody else on Team Grapes with this nonsense? Did you see Don Cherry just lose it last night about this?
Yeah, well, he was like,
it was so incoherent. I thought I was watching a government shutdown press conference.
It's a national emergency.
Storm warning.
Hurricane coming. Stand back. There's a hurricane coming through.
No FEMA money. It's all for Wall.
We talked about it last week, and now it's like we're at a fever pitch, and like I'll be very honest, and I just tweeted about this that I think it's stupid.
I don't like it either.
I think it's dumb, and I think that I think it's very contrived, and anything contrived trying to be organic, it doesn't do it for me. That being said, the absolute last thing I want is an NHL where that is not allowed, where fun and games and anything that's not just hard-nosed hockey is allowed. So do I hate it? No. I dislike it. Do I think they should keep doing it? Sure. Do whatever floats your boat. Do whatever you want to do.
If the players like it, if the fans like it, why not?
But
I hate it personally.
Right.
I hate it, but I also hate coconut green curry. But like millions of people eat it, so it doesn't mean it's bad. Like I don't want it banned. Like if they want to do these like funny little sellies and it makes the 4 fans in Carolina happy.
Okay.
God bless you. Go for it.
Here's the thing. Like it doesn't bother me at all because you know why?
Why?
I'm not watching enough Carolina Hurricane games.
I am shocked though. I caught the lead into the Canucks game. I don't think one of the last couple Canucks games, and they had Sportsnet's news sportscast on, and they had a specific, or no, it wasn't even Sportsnet. It was CBC, and their sportscast, like half of it was the Carolina Hurricanes came up with another fun celebration because they don't actually have a sportscaster. It's the anchor reading whatever's put in front of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's one of those things like I'm surprised at how far and how much attention it's getting. And I think the main reason for that is guys like Burke and Cherry bringing attention to it. So they're just like fueling a fire. But I guess they kind of make their money off of that. So it's not that different.
Talking about it, would we even know it was happening?
Exactly.
In Canada, we wouldn't even know.
No,
they're Alex Jonesy kind of situation now.
It's AM sports radio. You take that stand, and we'll talk about it for 30 minutes so that everybody calls in and gets riled up, and then boom, we're bada bing, bada boom, we're done for the day.
Yeah.
Listen, I think Imagine Dragons are the worst piece of shit band since,
No, they're amazing.
See, they are the equivalent of the NHL, of the Carolina Hurricanes goal celebration.
That's the argument. We don't care.
I don't give a shit. They suck, but do it. Do whatever makes you happy.
Well, I guess this is the cold open, but Dave wasn't here. Is it ironic? Do you find humor in the fact that Don Cherry and Brian Burke are the guys bringing attention to unprofessionalism when you look at how they present themselves on the air, Dave?
Just fighting in barns, Don Cherry doing all kinds of everything Don Cherry's ever done ever.
Now, I think this is something that gets lost in these rants, which is why I don't want the Coach's Corner to be a thing anymore. He needs to have a relaxed, edited, think what out you're going to say segment. We've talked about this for years, where he can't do a 5-minute gun to your head live, get everything in.
Right.
He takes all of these complaints about celebrations are from he's giving these critiques through the opposing team's eyes. And it's like, don't give the opposing team something to get more motivated about. Don't rub it in their face because it'll come back and it'll bite you in the ass. But that seems to really get lost in just his clusterfuck spaz response. But at the same time, he did ask a good question. If the Canes make the playoffs and they're close, are they going to do this after every win? And what's going to happen when the same team plays you 48 hours later and they're pissed off that you were making fun of, that they're going to take that personally? And how do they respond to it, Paul?
I just want to mention, this is interesting to me to see this now after what we saw out of the Las Vegas Knights last year. Whereas I don't feel like anything Carolina's done is antagonistic towards the team they just beat. That's the
thing, yeah.
Like, it's a post-game thing.
Yeah,
it's a little dumb, but it's not really targeted at the team. It's just something they do for the fans. Whereas last year, I got a little worked up about the Vegas Golden Knights because before games, they hadn't even won yet. they were like insulting whatever representation they would create of the opposition, which was kind of fun, but at the same time,
Like, you haven't done shit yet.
it was kind of a dick move because you're putting down the opposition before you even face them.
The difference there, Paulie, though, is that wasn't the player.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's
just some guy in a suit.
But like that's a more of a representation of what like a Don Cherry, some of these arguments that are a little more valid if you're just talking about like what does it mean to the other team. As an organization, I still think that's more insulting if you're talking about bulletin board material than anything I've seen out of Carolina this year.
And I'd say if I was an opposing player, I would be like, I wouldn't be like offended. I'd be like, oh, look at these idiots. Like, we could beat them. If they're spending more time, they should spend more time practicing instead of working on this celebration. Like, we'll just beat them in game 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like as like a hockey player, the only type of celebration that another team could do that would actually get me up is if it was at my expense. If a guy scores a goal, points at our bench, or like mocks our goalie, then I'm going to put his head through a freaking wall. Like, but if they want to play like Red Rover after a game that's already over,
have at her.
I might line up against Williams in the next game. Like, you guys are fucking stupid. But like, I'm not going to hit him over it. Whatever. You want to embarrass yourself on national TV? Go for it. It's a time-honored American tradition.
I'm guessing that's what a lot of teams have sort of viewed this as. Yeah,
it's pretty harmless. Like, it's not inflammatory at all. Like, whatever. I like I said, I compare it to food you don't like. You don't like it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. You don't have to watch it. But just don't be like the NFL when they banned a lot of those touchdown celebrations. It appeals to a certain market of the fans, and it makes the game a little bit fun for some people. Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Amen.
Yeah. Well,
I hate it, but fine.
Yeah.
Amen.
Who the hell am I? Who the hell are we? Like, just because we don't like it, like we're 4 nerds with a podcast. Like, we're not God.
There's the thing. The team is participating. Amen. There's not like one person standing off to the side pouting and being that player.
There's one. It's Dougie Hamilton.
He was reading a book or going to a museum.
Love that guy.
Could they not do Heads Up 7-Up? That's the one I'm waiting for.
Well, if they do Duck Duck Goose and now they're doing the bit, like, it's just a matter of time.
Write them a letter, Dave. Write Justin Williams a letter.
I want Heads Up 7-Up, and I want them to get the big parachute thing from gym class. They could do that one too. They get a big Carolina Hurricanes, like a big storm themed parachute thing.
Maybe love it. Dodgeball after a hockey game.
They got gloves. They could do it. They line up all the gloves at center ice and then go. There you go.
They should do a dodgeball one. See, maybe we do like it.
Well, Dave, we'll let you go on that very positive note, and we'll let you enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. It's it was a good day in Ottawa of skating on the canal and then going to Chipotle. It was pretty much as Canadian as it gets.
Yes, nothing more Canadian than Chipotle.
Than an outdoor skate and an overpriced burrito. All right, I'll see you guys later.
Good night.
Okay, good night, Dave.
Right,
should we all say goodnight to Dave?
Yeah.
Didn't you guys just... No?
We did.
Did the listeners say goodnight to Dave? He was on video too.
It's the middle of the day.
When he's on video, you keep him turned to yourself.
I want them all for me. I need to invest in a webcam that I can put like right here. So
he
maybe
doesn't want to see us.
It's better for cues. And I was like, did you see me when I was like a floor director? I was like, Paul in 3, 2, and I would point.
That's your job.
Yeah, and
do your job, right?
Stay in your lane, McClellan. Somebody gave did somebody give Ron Shrimp a stay in your lane? Rob Shrimp? I can't remember.
Probably. Yeah, I don't know. That whole thing, everything's been blowing up with that. People are trying to take their own, like, attach it to other. Corey Hirsch was getting into all sorts of trouble.
It's really funny on our rundown, which the listeners don't see.
Patreon backers do. Page 1
because
at least.
It looks like the quote is actually in reference to Rob Shrimp as a player, and there's no mention of John Tavares anywhere on the page. And so I actually had to go and find the articles. He made me work because I was like, where did this name appear from?
So yeah, I thought it was about Rob Shrimp too. And I'm like, I must have missed something.
I know. I'm like, clearly I haven't been paying attention.
Clearly my new scheme has paid off perfectly.
Is Robbie Shrimp playing in the NHL again?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I missed something.
He's back? What?
No wonder the Islanders are doing so well.
Exactly.
He's dipsy doodling all around.
Super superstar.
He could probably play in this. Oh, no, he didn't really. I don't know what his problem was. Just good in the shootout. That's what it was.
Okay.
He'd probably love playing in Carolina. Him and Smokey Joe. Who's that the kid that celebrated too much? People got mad about in Edmonton.
I don't know.
Can't even remember now.
Don't worry, he'll probably come back to Edmonton and we'll know.
It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I like how that stopped the show. Did they turn this into Grant Pure? Huh? What do you mean? Huh? Did Grant? What? Oh. It cracked me up.
You know, if you'd used like Dwayne Rollison, I might have been there. I was like, oh, Dwayne's coming back.
I went way back.
I loved this.
OG.
So three
Original
teams.
Grant.
You know I live in 1990s.
Grant Pure, the OG. They talked. I found this stat that 3 other teams have had 7 goalies play.
I thought the Las Vegas Knights had 7 goalies like last February.
No, they had Lagasse, Fleury, Subban, the Blazer,
Ferguson.
Yeah, and
that's pretty close.
They're getting close.
I think they might have got to 6. Yeah.
Okay.
They were talking about tying the record. I think
we're going for it, gang. But this one was quite the eye opener because it was the 07-08 Kings, and I think Crawford he wasn't the coach there. I can't remember who the coach of the Kings was back then.
Sure.
I think that was in the Avery. No, Avery was a King at this, or a Ranger at this point.
Yeah.
But they had Jean-Sebastien Aubin, Jonathan Bernier, Dan Cloutier, Eric Erzberg, Jason LaBarbera, John Quick, and some guy named Danny Taylor. And there's a real past, present, and future situation
Danny
going on.
Taylor, was that one of the sons on Home Improvement?
It was. He was traded from Detroit. And then
that was a bad reference. I apologize.
Well, you could also Danny Taylor. It sounded more like Danny Tanner from Full House.
Yeah, same era.
They had a lot of French-Canadian goalies.
I was really paying a lot of attention to the 02-03 Blues because they played the Canucks in the first round.
Right.
And they had that good, grizzled, angry defensive core. But they had Tom, like this, and this is 03. They had Tom Barrasso, Fred Brathwaite. He became famous because when I was living in Calgary, the Flames had a very bad injury year, and they just randomly found Fred Brathwaite to play, and he actually, carried the load for a while. Fred Brathwaite, Reinhard de Vries, Brent Johnson, remember him, Chris Osgood, remember him, went on to win another Stanley Cup, Cody Rudkowski, and of course the Sandman, Curtis Sanford. And for you kids out there who don't remember the Sandman, he would get a shutout every time the Canucks played him. So they said, hey, let's just sign him. And then he wasn't very good.
Mediocre backup.
Yeah. But he said, where's all our shutouts, Sandman?
But I'm pretty sure Tom Barrasso was like 41. That like he was retired.
Yeah.
And they called him up because they were at the point where they were like, we're going to have to start a 19-year-old OHL goaltender if you don't sign Tom.
We gotta do anything to not have a 19-year-old OHL defensive goaltender play for us.
It'd be like if the Canucks have been like, hey, Dan Cloutier, I know you've been coaching lately. How do you feel about playing?
He probably could have done it, too.
He probably looked over and like his gear was sitting in a perfect pile next to the door. He's like, I knew this day would come. Not since 07-08 when the Kings had all those injuries did I know I'd get my shot again.
If he was coaching in Florida, he would have probably come into a game like Robbie Tallis did a couple years ago already.
Yeah.
But what if he played really well and then just took the job? And now Dan Cloutier is running with it.
Dan the man Cloutier.
It's been 2 games since Monday, but yeah, it's now Dan Cloutier's net.
It's his net. We're just sitting here going, well, shit, that's Dan Cloutier's net. Well, that's too bad. Well,
it's that accountant in Chicago that's leading their late season comeback, right? Foster's in that. Oh, it's Delia. My bad. He's an accountant too, I'm sure, though. They let him walk on.
That was a lifetime ago when Mikey DiPietro played. I wrote a blog about it, or an article. It's up on pucksonnet.ca.
I was there. It was the second time I saw someone's debut this season.
Who else did you see?
Pedersen's.
You were at the home opener?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that was also a lifetime ago.
Jesus.
So here's a fun fact, though.
Is it about Geeta's game and tendency?
No, it's Mikey
My
DiPietro.
game attendance is not that good.
Well, ever since somebody
I try not to show up that often.
During Mike DiPietro's start, so I feel like you
Debacle?
guys
Starts.
I'm sitting directly below the San Jose Sharks
you were
management
there. I
box.
forgot.
It's my job.
So I forgot. I'm like, because we recorded on Sunday because you were both going to the game respectively, and I was sitting at home like texting like, DiPietro's getting a start. You gotta tune in. It's gonna be amazing. Because I had this fuck it, put him in mindset, and I'm like, if the Canucks know that they've got this little shrimp, not Rob Shrimp, but a little pipsqueak 19-year-old playing in net, they are going to batten down the hatches and play some Arizona Coyotes hockey and give him every opportunity to win. And then they were literally batting pucks at him, saying, you need less of an advantage.
The first one was bad defensive coverage. The second one was just bad luck.
Yeah.
It was just a weird goal, and then everything rolled downhill after that. But it was interesting after 3 or 4 goals. I could hear the management from the San Jose box behind me kind of like, so what's the story with this kid? And they're like, each of them are piecing together what they know about the situation in Vancouver. And they're like, do we have anyone we could try to sell him? That's all I've got. Like, it wasn't anything crazy, but obviously, yeah, they're going like, oh, can we capitalize on this situation and help them out in some way? Like, because everyone's like, why don't they have somebody else? Now, a lot of people were jumping on Benning and saying, why don't they just sign Michael Leighton, or why don't they sign Kublikov, or why don't they sign, if you sign a free agent mid-season, they do have to clear waivers in most cases. So I think the fear was you sign a guy, you wind up with a Mike McKenna situation.
Right.
So how many guys are you going to sign before you get someone to play for the team? There's going to be at least 24 hours or however long they have to sit on waivers before you can stick them in there.
And because if you put somebody on waivers, the Philadelphia Flyers are going to pick them up just to fuck with you.
Yeah, they'll be carrying 6 goalies. 2 of them will be sitting in the defenseman's spot on the bench.
But
just
they're
because
not letting you have them.
they are bullies on Broad Street, and they will bully in any way, shape, or form they can.
Just sign 30 of them. Just sign 30 goalies at once.
The Philadelphia Flyers are going to play 20 goalies tonight.
Jam them all in the net.
Just to fuck with Vancouver.
Yeah. They're going to wear pads while playing the forward position just to send a message.
You can't pick up 30 people at once on waivers.
They'll-
That's how you get around the system.
Well, Philly's figuring it out.
Some of them are on the IR.
Yeah.
But Vancouver Jim Benning was, I honestly think he was just waiting for Mike McKenna to show up on waivers. Philadelphia loaned him to the Phantoms. He did play a game against Utica, and then he comes back in the allotted time. Yeah. So they're still technically carrying all 3 of them. Right now, Brian Elliott's on his stint to get ready to come back. Yeah. So McKenna will finally go on waivers. It's interesting to note, too, McKenna and, who did they end up picking up? I want to say Mrazek, but I know it's not Mrazek. It's
Mazanek? Marek Mazanek?
Marek Mazanek.
Mazanets. It's like Placanets.
Here's my take.
Mazanets. Anyway, they're both right-handed catching goalies,
which is the best.
And I wonder if the Canucks were specifically, or if that's just coincidence, targeting a right-handed catching goalie. Because it's unusual.
It is unusual, and I think that maybe just because so many players are used to left-hand catching that maybe it just might throw them off.
So is that why Benning didn't make a move? Because there were no right-handed catching goalies available?
Yes.
Trying to bring back Glenn Hanlon? He's the only right-handed catching goalie I can think of in Canucks history. That's another name like Grant Fuhr.
In Canucks history,
back in the day.
Like, who else was there? There was somebody recently, I swear. But I couldn't tell you.
I think one of the goalies they had, like Alfie Michaud or whatever in that era, was a right-hander because they had about 17 goalies in those few years.
These names have not been said in a long time.
It's
like Beetlejuice.
Here's my takeaway is that Jimbo was like, oh, the price the price was too high to get one of these goalies.
Someone wanted a 6th rounder.
And then 2 days later, when they know you got your arms behind your back and you're in a corner or over a barrel, pick your visual metaphor or your scenario. He somehow only gives up a 7th in the next year's draft. So, which I believe I was talking to Dave on Twitter about this. Like, what were the original asking price for this goalie? Like, the rights to Mike Fountain or something? Like, it went from that to a 7th next year. Like, come on. Like, that's just bad. It was just a bad lot of everything.
Optics.
Bad planning. Fuck it, it'll be fine. He won't get hurt.
You look like you can't do your job.
Right.
Is what it looks
Read it
like.
about it in my blog at pucksnet.ca. Fill up.
Yeah, I didn't think it was as bad as everybody thought it was.
It's just preventable.
Shit
Mike
happens.
DiPietro just seems stoked to get a start in the NHL. I know some people are worried about it shattering his confidence.
He's not having fun in that rink, though. Poor guy.
Which rink?
That one.
On Monday night?
Or his previous start there.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a rough go of it, but
2019 in Rogers Arena, not
just write it off, man.
Yeah, he can play in January 2020.
Yeah.
After the game, I did get him, and he was all just like,
"You got him? Like you beat him up?"
Yes.
This is what you get for letting down a fan base.
Oh.
And he was just,
I got him.
All about like. He seemed to be in better spirits than I was expecting. I was like not looking forward to talking to him.
That's the thing. The loss isn't on him.
No, the loss.
It would be like if they put me in. I'd be like, all right.
These pads are too big. What am I? You got anything smaller?
It's literally that. It's like,
So you're saying that you could take Canada to the World Juniors and start everything?
If there's a solid team of Rob Schrempf in front of me.
And you're playing Denmark on Boxing Day, they might let 1 or 2 in.
No, it'd be like if Vancouver was like, we're so desperate. Here, you stand there.
Just 5 different holes.
Fine.
I quite liked that I didn't like that the Sharks were putting out their first power play unit, and I'm like, why is Vander Kane out there again and again
when it was 7-1 or
and
whatever
I'm like,
late in the game?
Come on,
because they're in it to win it.
That's right. They can't take the foot off the gas.
No, they needed those 2 points.
But I did like that the fans were just like, every save was just like, good job, we're gonna get through this. And then my favorite thing was the referees. Like every whistle was just like, "Hey, buddy, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna get somebody in here for you."
Yeah, it's a fine line. It did cross my mind. The Canucks weren't going out of their way to like go back and talk to him too much after the first 4, 5 goals
but
or whatever.
But you gotta think that they were embarrassed.
Well, there's that too. I think part of it was them just trying to treat him more like a professional and not overly baby him because of the way the crowd and maybe even the officials and everyone was treating him.
Yeah.
Like they've spent, a week with him, week and a half with him now, and saw him in camp. They were probably like, you know what? We know this kid. He's mentally there. We don't want to overly
baby him.
Because then he'll be like, everyone's treating me like I'm a 12-year-old.
I'm 19.
Yeah.
But that's also what makes someone cry is when you're overly babied.
Is everything okay? Is everything okay now? You're fine, right? Everything's gonna be just fine.
So I was kind of
I'm in a bad fucking mood. Just leave me alone.
So yeah, I was watching for that kind of thing to see like where they were drawing that line.
Oh,
anyway.
for sure.
It was interesting.
You guys want to hear a funny clip?
Yeah.
As we wrap up the podcast, well, we'll do a couple of questions here. This is a clip I found that a radio station out of Chicago or out of Toronto does. This is Indy 88, and they take Coach's Corner every week and they slow it down and they call it Drunk Don Cherry. So let me just bring this up for you. And this really cracked me up today. So
beautiful pass now. Listen, you know you goalies out there, I watch it, I think you're cleaning your eyes. Always keep sharp. Watching this here up the Smith Belly. I don't mind.
That just cracked me up. He does one where he's like, and he's talking about watching Major Midget. I was like, it is cold in there.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Like earlier in the internet years, somebody had taken the 90s Jeff Goldblum Apple computer commercials and slowed them down. So if you go online and look for drunk Jeff Goldblum, that's sort of where I think the whole slowing people speaking down, and if they speak in an unusual way, It makes him with Jeff Goldblum sounds
Yeah.
very drunk because he speaks in an unusual way.
Do you want me to do find clips of each of us and slow them down and
That
do
would be
drunk?
really funny.
You could probably just find clips of each of us being
could
drunk on the podcast.
No, that's why we're still trying to compose ourselves at the Christmas party. That is my project for the week.
Just
I will
slow
slow us
down.
down this week.
Slow down any one of our podcasts.
Let me tell you about Michael
Hey,
DiPietro.
Alex Ovechkin has 39 goals in 57 games.
That's
I
fair.
did the math.
Yeah?
And I punched it into a calculator. He's on pace for 56 goals.
Wow. That's pretty good. That's a very good season. Here's the other thing. I saw this kid in the queue who's supposed to have his late birthday. He's supposed to be a next year 2020 first overall draft pick. Some French boy by the name of Alexis Lafreniere. And I was like, oh my God, he has 91 points in 50 games. And I'm like, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started looking back at like, well, how much did some superstars have in their second year?
Okay.
And it's like McDavid had 99 points. Stamkos had 105.
Yeah.
Tavares 118. Crosby 168. And Gretzky at 182. So I was like, okay, shit, maybe not. Never mind.
You're like, meh.
But the Habs will be trying to get that pick to get him.
They got it. Oh, yeah. They love they love a homegrown French boy. And he plays for Rimouski.
Oh.
Just like Sid the Kid. I want to go to a couple questions here.
Sure.
Corey Bananas asks what the expletive are the Canucks going to be buyers or sellers of the deadline? My response is neither because they have nothing to sell.
No.
They have an injured reserve list and Alex Edler who doesn't want to waive his no trade clause.
And their buying is sometimes head scratchy.
Yeah. So
even if they were to move a youngster, probably Jake Virtanen is the type of name that might, if you can bring in another young player.
Never.
No, that would cause the city to freak out. We might not like him all the time, but we also don't want to let him go. You can't have him.
That he is totally a you can't have him player. I got to agree with you right there, Geeta.
I view it as if you're going to move a youngster who's somewhat underachieved, but is still potentially something that another team could want. He's the guy. He's on the IR right now. So you're absolutely right as far as like even the one guy who might be in that young core that could get moved can't get moved.
I'm so glad I was right this week. Thank you very much for that, Paul.
And thank you for trying to disagree with me before you realized I was agreeing with you.
Just a polite clap.
There's a golf clap there. But before the show started, Paul and I were impressing Geeta by naming off all the golfers that we knew. We did pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative.
Well, our Sunday podcast, I make you watch.
Between us, we got like 10 guys.
Yeah, we're good.
And they were from the last 40 years or so of golf.
I didn't even say Arnold Palmer.
Oh, there you go. Ernie Els.
Chris Faber asks, out of the three, because Dave's not here anymore, who would go the furthest on the legendary TV show Survivor? Now, I thought about this on the way over, and I believe I would go week 1.
Okay.
Why would you go week 1?
Because I'm very polarizing and loud.
Yeah.
And I would rub somebody the wrong way in close quarters. And they
try to keep some of those guys around just because they know they'll win if they're in the final 3.
But they'd be like, this guy's fucking annoying. Paul, you'd go week 2. You want to know why?
People see me as a threat.
No, there would be an endurance challenge. Like I remember one time I watched on Survivor and they had to stand on this like post out in the sea for 16 hours or something.
Yeah.
And your knee would just get inflamed.
That doesn't mean you get voted out. People like to keep the people who are bad at the challenges around because they know they can beat them later.
Okay, then you used up all the clean drinking water to wash your socks.
Right.
And they're like, the hell with this guy. He doesn't even have
I am the
immunity.
most survivalist of any of us. on the podcast.
So now we're at the final 2.
And it's who is it?
It's me and Dave, right? Because you've gone out week 1, you've gone out week 2. And here's where it comes down to the 2 of you vote.
But I was watching the episodes back at camp where you were talking shit about me.
You don't get to see those.
Oh, but I heard about it.
This is also assuming that all of us are on the show and only the four of us are on the show.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
thinking
It's just the four.
No, there's others.
if you
There's-
drop one of us into a random cast of
Maybe
Survivor.
next year we don't play fantasy hockey and we just play Survivor with
We'll
all
go-
those people.
Go out in Stanley Park and play Survivor for a week. Not coming
With our
into work.
with our listeners. Oh, I have a question from Ariana Grande.
Is she still on the fridge?
She's still on.
Okay, I put that
I
there.
thought that was funny. Guys, we're at dinner discussing what soups we'd be if we were soups, and everyone knows what soup they'd be immediately, and each answer is so different and specific. So now I ask you, if you were a soup, which soup do you identify?
How do they know? How do all of Ariana Grande's associates know what type of soup they would be off the drop of a hat?
I feel like that's a different crowd than me and my
People
friends.
probably took like a BuzzFeed quiz. I don't know.
Give me like a beef stew. Doesn't it's not always the most appealing.
Yeah.
It doesn't look, or you're like, ugh. But then when you have it, maybe put on a little mashed potatoes or some rice or
yeah.
something.
And also, a lot of people don't like consuming beef, and you just talked about how polarizing you are.
I'm trying to approach this as realistically as possible.
Some people
Yeah.
love it, and some people won't touch it.
Well, I try not to eat a lot of beef nowadays, just
Okay.
because it just doesn't do it for me as much as it used to.
Now, are we going to deeply analyze? You don't touch beef very much. You don't like it that much. Are you okay with where you are as a person from your own perspective right now?
I think I'm okay with myself.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You just
You
need
need
some
a
breaks from yourself sometimes.
Yeah, don't we all? Just need a little break from Ryan.
New Splinter podcast, PMAC gives people deep dives into their psyche
I think it all started when I was 12.
based on the soups.
BMAC
They compare themselves.
psychoanalyzes.
What about you? What kind of soup would you be?
I have no idea.
I think I'd be a broccoli cheddar.
Oh, everybody loves it's the number one soup at work. Where you walk by is like, because it's for it's got something for everybody, and
Yeah.
it's like it's really hard to fuck it up.
There you go.
But you give me a shitty broccoli cheddar, oh, you can rub a lot of people the wrong way.
I don't know. I've been eating a lot of mulligatawny lately. Does that mean that's me?
Maybe. What's a mulligatawny feature?
It's like a curry soup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Is it
I think you're something hearty.
maybe we'll got mulligatawny with some texture?
Yeah, real stick
With
to your
some-
ribs.
With some elk mixed in there.
Yeah. Did you shoot it out back?
Yep. Up on the mountain.
In your haunted house. I guess we'll wrap it up for this week's podcast. I'd like to thank Ariana Grande for her question this week and for always supporting the Florida Panthers, who are going to go all in on the bread man. Well, here we are talking about soup, and got to bring in the bread man and Officer Sergei Bobrovsky. Once again, I want to thank new Patreon backer Arp Parr. That is a false name
Thanks.
or an abbreviation.
Or not.
Maybe. If it is, I apologize, Mr. Parr or Miss Parr. I apologize, person Parr. And if you want to be like Parr, you can pledge a couple of bucks. Couple of bucks. Over on Patreon at patreon.com/pucksonnet. And make sure you follow us on Twitter at pucksonnetca or pucksnetca. And if you don't want to give us any money, just go to the Apple Podcasts app or iTunes Store. Go in there, sign in, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. And if you do that, let us know that you did it, because those are worth their weight in gold and they help defeat the awful Steve Jobs algorithm. And I really recommend you sign up for the Pucks on Net email newsletter subscription, because this week was a doozy, and it's going to be what all 5 minutes are paying is going to be about, because controversy rocked the PLN. Yeah, you look at the ground when I say that. You look at the ground, Geeta. Jesus.
Fantasy League.
The Fantasy League was rocked
Context.
because of the cold-blooded, cutthroat, business first, personal.
I think you should.
I'm not done.
I think you should give me credit for making that move.
For putting a knife in the back of Jason Spezza. What are we talking about? It'll be on Patreon. So go do that. Go like Facebook and go like Instagram. Go to pucksnet.ca and tell your friends, and I don't know. We'll think of something. Yeah. Should I just leave it at that, or should I?
Oh, happy Sunday.
There you go. The music's ramping up.
Happy President's Day and Family Day.
Spend it with your families.
Or
Us
with your
who have
presidents.
to work.
Rock, move, get on